Great. So thanks, guys. Welcome. I'm Aaron Sahan. I lead the work at DEAL, Doughnut Economics Action Lab, on bringing Doughnut economics into the world of business. We are an action lab set up by Kate Rayworth and her co-founder, Carlotta Sanz. And we're really about trying to support change makers around the world to use the ideas of Doughnut economics, the concepts of Doughnut economics, with different kinds of actors, different kinds of themes and sectors. And for me, the focus is business and enterprise. A lot of the work is also about making sure that the ideas and concepts are applied with integrity. So we uphold that sort of transformational potential of Doughnut economics. In this webinar, I am going to focus on the core updates to the tool. So I'll give a very brief roundup of what the Doughnut Design for Business tool is, which is the way to use Doughnut economics with businesses. It's been co-developed with a number of organizations, with over 300 businesses during its pilot phase, and it's available for a big range of change makers to use around the world. And we're getting these organizations registered, and they're using these tools. There is no charge for using the tools of Doughnut economics in this way for values aligned organizations, but we do have a process of just submitting a public declaration form, which I'll go through in a second as well. So firstly, let me just share my screen and give you a bit of a sense of what we are going to go through. You have given me a sense of how familiar you already are with Doughnut Design for Business. I think we're somewhere between a 2 and a 3 in this group, which is great. So we'll go through some of the core aspects of it, but not dwell too much on some of the detail. And I'm going to give a few updates for those that are a bit more ingrained in using this tool as well, to give a sense of what we've created recently, how we've listened to the community of practice that has emerged, and what their needs have been, and what we're planning at the moment as well. So I'll go through some of those in a minute. To give you a sense, so if you go to doughnut-economics.org, you can see a whole range of tools that are available to use with various kinds of organizations and themes to engage with Doughnut economics. You can see a couple of snippets there, including a few for business, including the Doughnut Design for Business tool, which comes in 2 forms currently. There's a longer version called the Core tool, which is essentially a way to run a workshop with businesses that takes about 4 to 5 hours, maybe a bit longer to go into depth. And then there's a taster tool, which you can see there as well, which is a couple of hours and is a sort of a shortened version of the Core tool. But there are other tools as well for people working with communities, working with governments, with city, regional authorities, in academia and research, etc. So there's a very broad range of tools that you can check out in there. So I mentioned at the beginning, there's a community of practice, and there are about 100 organizations now that are registered that are using these tools of Doughnut economics, with lots of different sorts of clients or members and others. So some of them are listed there. When you go to doughnut-economics.org/organizations, you see a map, and you can also see it in grid view and see all the different logos of organizations. So when you click through any of those, you can see their public declaration form, how they have demonstrated, look, we are values aligned. This is how we are set up as an organization. This is how we are ambitious to transform the world, and do so in line with the ideas of Doughnut economics. So yeah, do check those out. The process is really there to make sure that this gift or this work we're putting into the Creative Commons is able to be carried through with integrity, and we can also protect this space for the more ambitious, more transformational, and often more grassroots organizations that are driving this kind of change. So the tool I mentioned, the Doughnut Design for Business tool, this is the one graphic I'm going to show to give you a sense of what it is. Essentially, to use Doughnut economics with business, we ask 2 critical questions. How does the design of your business block transformative action, and how could a redesign of your business unlock transformative action? And by the design of the business, what we mean is the purpose, the networks, the governance, the ownership, and the finance behind the business. We use the term deep design sometimes. We call it enterprise design. It comes from the work of Marjorie Kelly, an amazing thought leader and author on these ideas of enterprise design. And we use it as a way to really scrutinize how the ownership model, for instance, is stopping transformative ideas, such as redesigning of products or strategies that are going to reduce and eliminate carbon emissions, or strategies that are going to give far higher incomes and wages for workers and farmers in a supply chain. So those sorts of transformative ideas, what we've noticed is there are elements of the deep design that are often holding back those ideas. And if we can purposefully, choicefully help redesign companies, they can get out of their own way to pursue some of these ideas. And of course, we recognize the design of a company, its ownership model, its governance structure, its financial parameters. These are not the only things that enable or hold back businesses. There's regulations, there's market dynamics, there's consumer preferences, there's leadership qualities, there's cultural norms in the business. There are so many aspects. But if we can also redesign companies to purposefully unlock ambitious, transformative action that is pursuing social and ecological goals, then those other elements also can be unlocked. You can have companies that lobby for more progressive and more high-level policies. You can have companies that both retain and support more ambitious leadership and cultural changes in the business as well. So you end up finding ways to unlock other transformation strategies if we can also help redesign the company. So that's the core premise of this. And we are called the Doughnut Economics Action Lab, and all of those words are very deliberate. It is about the donut, which I assume everyone here knows. It's about the that you can see in that green donut diagram on the slide, as well as an inner boundary, the social foundation, and staying between those two boundaries, that green, safe and just space for humanity. So that's the donut. And at a place-based level for populations, we can measure this. We can say, is this population behaving in a way that is staying within the donut? Is it meeting its own needs and allowing and staying within the boundaries of the planet? But at the same time, we feel like there are lots of organizations and businesses that need to take action. So we need to go from the donut to donut economics, because donut economics is more than just a donut. It's saying, well, what are the ideas for helping humanity into donut, to be regenerative by design, to distribute, to be agnostic to growth, the 7 ways that Kate Raworth lays out in her book. So that's donut economics. And then there's action, because we need action. We can't just be stuck in measurement and target setting. We need to move towards, well, what are the actions that are needed in business? And that's what this is about. And it's a lab because it's experimentation. This is not prescriptive. This is a process of a combined journey of testing and innovating new spaces. So all of those words, Doughnut Economics Action Lab, actually is the core of our strategy and the core of how we work with business. So I'm going to give, as I mentioned earlier in this slide here, I'm going to give some updates, and I'm also going to give a sense of things that are coming up as well. So the updates I'm going to go through include updates to the core tool and to the taster tool. They're also how we are doing or profiling those organizations that are using Doughnut Economics with their members, including impact hubs or the Specialty Coffee Association, or small boutique consultancies that are driving this change. Our map and trying to drive and channel interest towards. Those organizations are also putting a lot of stories up in our on the doughuteconomics.org website. And we're also, they've also asked us to put up more testimonials of businesses that have engaged with this and supported this journey. So we've got some updates on those. And there are some specific updates that are coming up to the tools that we are working on. We're asking practitioners to give us input, and all of this that we're seeing here have all come from practitioners that are using the tool with communities of businesses or individual companies who might be their clients or who might be their members or part of local communities of businesses. They've told us this is what we need. We need some new options for running these workshops, so we did this Annex E. they told us, look, we want to be more visible so people can find us if they want to work with Doughnut Economics. So we created the map. They said, look, we want to be able to tell some of these stories and share stories with each other for this community of practice to be effective. So we've got some of those going, and they've also told us we need to be able to explain why this is a powerful approach to transforming business. So we drew some testimonials. And then what's coming up, they've told us that, look, redesigning business is really critical, but it can't happen in a vacuum without also driving systemic change around companies. So which we're creating currently a pilot for exploring how businesses can engage with systemic change. And they also told us for larger companies, actually, we need some more detailed journeys here. We need a journey that allows them to go into far more sort of a structured approach to looking at their organizational design and the kind of actions they need to unlock. So we're working on this. They also said we need place-based business tools. So if businesses come together that are from the same place, we need to be able to understand this and understand ways to engage with them with the ambitions of their local city or locality. And lastly, they said we need stories of businesses, examples of companies that are doing this. And we've just launched today a process for people to help us co-create this. So this, if you are a practitioner on the call, then hopefully part of this, you can imagine the feedback that you've given previously and how we've engaged, but we're very keen to hear more about all of this. I'm going to keep going for about another 6-7 minutes or so, and then I'll open up for questions then, if that's okay. But if there are any burning questions currently, do raise your hand or get my attention in any way you need to, and I can pause and answer them. We're a small enough group that this can be pretty informal. But I'm looking around at the faces, and it feels like I've got a green light to keep going. But do pull me back if you need to. So I'm going to flick back forward to my slides and say, okay, so the first thing we did is this is sort of the overarching tool, and there's the core and a taster version, as I mentioned. We said, look, people said we need some options for how we implement this tool. So when you go into the tool, you'll see there's a Google Slides that has got all of the materials in there for you. It's got all of the slides to present, all the activities, the canvases to print out or run on Miro if you're doing an online workshop. It's got guidance in slides at the back in the annexes, guidance for the facilitators. So it's really equipped for people to run with this and run a workshop and just engage with an individual company or with multiple companies. One of the things they say is we need some options on how we can do this more effectively. So we group some of these, and you'll see in Annex E now in both the taster and the core version of the workshop tool, some of those examples, like for instance, how to set preparation tasks for participants, or how to introduce some of the activities differently. It might work in different ways for you, or how to sort of add energizer activities into workshops, for instance. So they're all in there. Another critical thing that's in there is the questions need to look a bit different if you're running this with startups. If it's a business that hasn't existed for very long, asking the question, how does the design of your business hold back transformative action, doesn't quite land as well. So we've tweaked the questions across the activities to make it a little bit more a little bit easier for you to present and run this workshop for startups, for instance. That was one of the questions we got. We also got some requests for additional concepts that might be optional ways to introduce them. So do take a look at Annex E that's been added to both the core tool and the taster tool. Next is the map. So as you can see there are 104 organizations now listed. There's a few more, I think, that have also come in. And the map is now prominent. So when you go to the business thematic page or the organizations page, when you go to the communities drop down of doughuteconomics.org and go to organizations in action, this is the main thing that you see. And you can zoom in and select an organization that has completed their public declaration and been approved by us to run Doughnut Economics with their clients, with their members, etc. So very broad range of organizations you can see in there. And yeah, I listed some of them in another format earlier, but some of them are global networks, others are very place-based local organizations, some of them very, very boutique, even single person consultancies or coaches or facilitators that are working with companies and others. So do have a look. If you're a business and you're interested in getting support, these are the people that are equipped to support you on your journey. If you're an organization that works with a community of businesses or a community of policymakers, or you're a consultancy or a business network, etc., do register. It's quite a short model for us to do that, and we can then also profile you as a practitioner of Doughnut economics. The other thing is writing stories of the individual organizations that are using this tool. So here are some of those examples that I pulled. When you go to stories on our website, you can filter by business and enterprise, and this is what shows. So these are all different kinds of workshops and ideas and things that the community of practice is generating related to business and enterprise. And we, as a community of practice, we're putting this in the Creative Commons for people to use and engage with. And we also expect the community of practice to keep sharing their insights with each other so that this becomes a co-created space. So, and the most important way to do that is through writing up stories. It could be a story about a workshop that was run with family businesses or local community of companies, or something else using the Doughnut Design for Business tool, or it could be something else related to that tool. But yeah, we very much invite that. And then we were asked to give some examples of testimonials. So we've got a few in there that we sort of selected from a mix of business networks, key players in sort of thought leadership, and examples of companies that have done this. So you can read that in the thematic page of business and enterprise. You can see this is just a snapshot from the website from earlier today. But if you go to themes and topics, you can find in there business and enterprise, and all the information is found within that. So those are what we've done so far. Now this is what we're working on. So everything I've presented so far exists already. If you go to our website, you'll find it. I mentioned before, people have asked, okay, Doughnut Design for Business, great. This is about enterprise design. This is about identifying the most ambitious actions, strategies, business models needed in order to help humanity into the donut, to really identify those difficult things that we know aren't happening. And we know they're not happening because overall, things are not improving. Percentage of the total economy that is classed as circular economy is on the decline. The Circular Economy Foundation's latest report shows this. The last 5 years, we've used about the same amount of materials as we did the entire 20th century. So we're not, despite all the enthusiasm about sustainability, actually, more broadly, things aren't moving. And one of the things we want to do through these workshops is put those biggest ideas on the table, say, what do you really need to do? How do you really need to fundamentally transform what you do and who you are in this world as a business? And how might you need to redesign your ownership, your governance, your finance, your purpose, your networks to do that? So that's the core bit, right? Adjacent to that, we also want to support people to think about, well, how can I as a business influence systemic change, influence government policy, influence the industry and its norms, influence public awareness and consumer demand, norms and culture more broadly in line with this ambition. So we're creating an activity to be added in, an optional activity to explore this. And right now we see that as probably landing within the tool in two ways. So what you're seeing there on the left, on that little, if you can ignore the text above, but on the left is the journey of the core tool. So the core tool's got those 5 steps within it, or 4 steps and then a wrap-up step at the end. And we would look at doing and actually I'll talk through this with people because some people are new to the tool in this group. So the core tool on the left, it starts with what's called rapid donut mapping. You map onto the donut qualitatively the impacts that the business has on ecological and social dimensions. Then you ask what are the biggest regenerative ideas and socially distributive and ecologically regenerative ideas the business should be pursuing. And then you move to, well, how are those ideas held back by the purpose, networks, governance, ownership, finance of the business? And then you ask, how can the business be redesigned in its purpose, networks, governance, ownership, finance to unlock and enable those kinds of ideas? So that's the core journey. And in the taster version on the right, You start with asking, you jump straight into asking, what are the ideas you need to do as a business? And we've found in our workshops, a lot of business leaders in the back of their mind know what they need to do. If they're in fashion, they need to move away from fast fashion and into much more sustainable models of production. If they're in food, they need to move away from monocrop, high input, intensive agriculture and into agroecology or regenerative agriculture. If they're in building, the built environment, they need to focus much more on repurposing existing constructions and sites, for instance. So all of these ideas are already there, and we're trying to induce people to put the biggest, scariest ideas on the table. And that's step one on the taster tool. And then step two is then asking the joint question of, well, how are you held back and how can you be enabled to pursue those kinds of ideas? Those are the core structures of the two tools. Core tools got a few extra steps, so it's sort of a bit more, a bit of a longer journey. But in the middle there is where we would drop the systemic question of, once you come up with those ecologically regenerative and socially distributive ideas, strategies, actions, well, how might you look around at the system around you and think how you can be enabled to do those sorts of things before moving to, well, how might you need to transform your own design as well as helping transform the design of the system around you. So in both cases, that's where it would drop. Currently, we're experimenting with whether we can use the 3 horizons as a model to do this. The 3 horizons framework developed by Bill Sharve that basically says we've got Horizon 1, which is business as usual. We need to see this decline. We have Horizon 3, which is the emerging future, which we can see the seeds of today, and that needs to emerge and evolve and become a much bigger dominant part of our economy. And in between, we've got Horizon 2, which are the disruptions, the particularly disruptive innovations that will either be co-opted by business as usual to enable business as usual to stay on, or will enable that transformation towards the emerging future. So that's the broad brushstrokes of how we've understood the 3 horizons framework and have used it. And we're experimenting with, if that works, to ask questions about the role of businesses in pursuing systemic change. And then we would ask a bunch of questions around this, to what the company then will need to end doing in order to belong to that future, what the company needs to start doing to belong to that future, what are the external partners and collaborations it will need to pursue, who are the internal partners that they'll need to engage with, when would they need to act, and are there moments that present opportunities for companies to drive this sort of transformation and supporting the emerging future, and as an individual, what can the individuals do internally and externally in their engagements to drive it. So this is the current draft. This is what we're experimenting with, and a group of organizations in action put their hand up to take part in a online pilot a few weeks ago. That was really successful, and we got some great insights already, and people are commenting on this draft, and we'll review this. So if you're interested, please do reach out to me about this. Second thing we're developing is a place-based tool. Now, it's a place-based tool because Doughnut Economics, the way it really has taken off in the last sort of 6-7 years, is through a place-based perspective. Local communities saying, okay, what are we in the donut, and what's our contribution towards the donut as a place, as a community locally? So that involves asking 4 key questions. One is around, what is their impact on the local ecology? And the second is the global ecology. And then the third is, what's their impact on the local society? And the fourth is global society. So it's called the 4 lenses, and this 4 lenses approach allows a place to come up with some ideas around A, how it's performing, and B, what it can do locally and globally for both ecological and social goals. Based on this, we're working on a tool for companies to engage with these questions. So we imagine companies that are particularly rooted in a community or have a particular impact somewhere, or are concerned about their role in that local community or that local place. And we would ask a number of questions around the ecological and social aspects and the local and global aspects for how companies and how their sectors will need to evolve in a particular direction. So you can read some of the questions there that come up. How can this sector's operations be as generous as the wildland next door? That's the local ecological question, if you think about the local ecological considerations. And the global ecological one would be, how can this sector respect the health of the entire planet, the whole planet? And then when we get to the social, the bottom two, we would be asking, how can this sector enable our customers, employees, and suppliers to thrive? So this local to the company perspective, and how can this sector respect the well-being of all people worldwide? And that would be the global social perspective. So we're experimenting with this, we're piloting this, we're pretty excited and confident that this works for companies to take a place-based perspective and to start by looking at what are the ambitions and impacts of their local place and how they belong to those ambitions, and ask that perspective into the companies and their sector. And then we would also ask, how would the design of those companies and sectors need to evolve to enable them to do this? So they're going to need new forms of ownership, new forms of financial parameters, new power relationships and governance. They'll need new networks of collaboration and deep engagement with each other and other stakeholders, etc. So this is also the question that they land on. I'm almost done, by the way. A couple more things to flag. So full workshop for larger companies, we're creating as well. One of the comments and insightful comments we've had is that for very large companies, these very general questions are hard to digest. For when you're a huge company with lots of subsidiaries, lots of departments, lots of brands and sub-businesses, you're going to need a bit more guidance on exactly how to answer and tackle this. And you're probably going to need a little bit more guidance in shaping your preparation for this workshop. And what we'll be introducing there is a preparation phase that will be fairly substantive, and it will include having sponsors within the company to drive that change more broadly as well. So a bit more of a structured, planned journey for businesses to implement this. And it will include, for instance, a lot more pre-work on understanding the existing ownership model of companies and the existing materiality assessments of companies, for instance, so that they can come into the workshop a bit more prepared to go a bit further with a lot more guidance to complete that journey. So this is coming. It will mean that it requires more effort and time and a broader range of people within the company. So it will happen with a company that is more committed to this journey, to putting time into this. We're collaborating with WWF France in co-creating this, which we're quite excited about, and we'll probably be piloting it as well with them. But once it's released, it will be, again, in the Creative Commons for practitioners to use who are part of that community of practice that we have. And lastly, I mentioned stories or case studies of companies. Just today, we put out an expression of interest for researchers, writers, practitioners to help join a team of people to write deeper stories, essentially about how the deep design, the enterprise design of companies plays a critical role in unlocking the kind of actions and strategies that we're talking about. So we know we refer to a lot of examples in the paper that we have that you can find on our core tool website, and also across all the talks that we do and across the tools as well. There are lots of examples that we refer to, examples like Selco in India, or Patagonia, or Faith in Nature, or River Simple, and Einhorn we mentioned. There's so many different companies, usually with a steward ownership model or some sort of a social enterprise structure, or elements of design that draw from those ideas. But we want to write a slightly more substantive case study of some of these. And this is a need that has been expressed to us, that we need sort of a deeper, more sophisticated and substantive explanation of the design of these companies and others, and why it's so critical to unlock and greenlight certain kinds of strategies for these businesses. So that's just been published. If you go to news on our website, you can see it. We have a bit of a budget for this as well, not a huge budget. So we would expect to be drawing in practitioners that see value for themselves as well in being a part of this journey, in co-creating these case studies and stories with us of individual companies. but we do have a bit of a budget that's available as well. And as a not-for-profit, we've got some limitations as well on our budget, unfortunately. So I'm going to pause there.